Hello friends, before I start today's video, let me extend my heartfelt thanks to you for supporting and liking our videos. And once again, I'll request you to subscribe to our channel and like our videos if you like the content that we produce. We are trying to be more regular and consistent with our videos and bring different topics to you. So today we are going to discuss about the US-Iran deal and its likely future trajectory. As we all know that about 2 weeks ago, the US and Iran finalized the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding at Bergenstock, Switzerland. So first, let's go through some facts. What are the main provisions? So it has about 14 points, and the US, the point, it begins with the idea that the hostilities will have to end on all the fronts. The US bombing on Iran and also the Iranian retaliatory strikes, drone attacks, they have to come to an end. Besides that, the Israel-Lebanon front also is involved from the Iranian side, and the hostilities will have to end there as a prerequisite for any stable peace. And then the US is required to withdraw its naval blockade from the Iranian ports and also withdraw its military presence from the Iranian proximity in about 30 days. And US promises about $24 billion. US promises to release Iran's frozen assets worth $24 billion. These foreign assets are frozen, and they're held in various global geographies, including Asia, Africa, and also a major part by the Qatar. Besides that, the US promises about reconstruction and economic development fund of $300 billion to Iran, which, given the massive amount of destruction that has taken place in Iran, is not sufficient, but still considered a significant amount, and also shows that Iran has been able to, I would say, squeeze a major development fund for its reconstruction. Apart from that, Iran has promised to allow traffic through Hormuz, and after the 60-day period is over, Iran may levy tolls from the ships passing through that region. So broadly, these are the main provisions of this deal. But alongside, another deal has taken place between Israel and Lebanon, which is a framework peace agreement, and that's also the idea is to bring an end to the hostilities on that front. But it faced bitter opposition in Beirut, and also the Hezbollah also rejected it because the deal clearly stated that Hezbollah has to be unarmed, and immediately it was followed by major cross-border violations, and Israelis retaliated by launching massive strikes in the Lebanese territory. On the other side, this deal, which has happened between Iran and the US, the so-called Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, it's being negotiated in this period of 60 days, after which it has to be stabilized into some kind of a formal permanent deal. Or if that's not possible, then it may likely get another extension for further negotiations. But we see that even before the discussions begin, there are a lot of, I would say, fragility and volatility, and things are going really awry, because as we have seen that there are a lot of disagreements. Iranians are insisting that based on the Article 5 of the deal, they have a complete control over the Strait of Hormuz, and the ships passing through that region will have to take the permission from Iran. But on the other side, the Americans don't agree with that, and most of the ships are not following the routes designated by the Iranian side, and they're trying to get closer to the Omanese coast, from where it's easier and much more safer to pass through that region. Overall, we can say that the Americans are not getting anything out of this deal, except hollow promises, because Iran makes only, like, it repeats its previous pledges of ending its nuclear program and not expanding or not procuring more nuclear material or enriching its nuclear content. But it doesn't make any concrete steps towards that. Besides that, the deal hardly mentions anything about Iran's missile program, which has proved to be the biggest deterrent and the most powerful tool in Iran's asymmetric capabilities. And regarding the Strait of Hormuz, it's very clear that Iran wants to monetize it with this Persian Gulf States Authority. Iran wants to levy tolls from the ships passing through that region after 60 days. But if that happens, that's going to completely upset the global maritime order and majorly dent the American credibility in that region. So, what do we make out of it? First of all, the deal is very fragile and it's very weak and it's very unlikely to come into any concrete, stable, and substantial format after these 60 days are over. Most likely, this is going to get another extension for further diplomatic engagement. As of now, we are also hearing that the US and Iran, they're both sending their delegations to Qatar next week for further diplomatic engagement and meetings. Qatari spokesperson Majid Al Ansari has said that the delegations are coming from the US side. Witkoff is coming, and from the Iranian side, Ismail Bagayev is coming. But both the parties have not accepted the fact that they're going to have direct bilateral negotiations between them. So most likely it's going to be mediated by Qatar, but in the world of diplomacy and international relations, it's very difficult to predict what goes inside the room. There is a strong possibility that some covert back channel direct one-on-one dialogue happens between the two parties, because there are major differences, and before anything substantial happens, or a substantial, I would say, begins in the form of a formal dialogue, some of the main friction points like the Strait of Hormuz, and also the unfreezing of the foreign assets, and the withdrawal of the American sanctions need to be discussed very clearly. Because Iran is insisting that before we begin the formal negotiation, the Americans will have to withdraw its sanctions, also the sanctions that were imposed through the UN Security Council, and also the primary and secondary sanctions that were directly imposed by the US. So before beginning any dialogue, Iran wants those sanctions completely withdrawn. Secondly, Iran wants the release of the foreign funds, at least the half of it, that's $12 billion. And that's what Iran is saying, that the Americans have promised to release that. And they're insisting that the visit to Qatar is also mostly about releasing half of the $12 billion, that's $6 billion, which are held under the Qatari oversight. But Americans have refused, that they're not going to release any of the foreign assets, or the assets have not been released yet, which clearly shows that the major friction points continue to exist between the two parties, and this so-called Memorandum of Understanding is very fragile, very weak, and volatile, and it's prone to, I would say, frequent escalations between the two parties. Very recently, I mean, just few days back, the two parties exchanged fires. Americans attacked the Iranian radar facilities and the Iranian air defenses facilities in the Kashem Island, also at Sirik. On the other side, the IRGC launched massive strikes on the American facilities and defense assets in Bahrain and Kuwait. So we can say that this deal is very weak, and its future trajectory is not going to bring stable peace in that region. But apart from that, personally, I feel that this deal is more like an abject surrender, a capitulation to Iran's whims and fancies. Because Americans are not getting anything out of it except hollow promises, and I would say lofty claims. Iranians are insisting that they should get everything done before the even talks begin, like the release of the sanctions and the withdrawal of the blockade, withdrawal of the American forces. But what are they offering in return? Nothing, just hollow promises that we are going to end a nuclear program or not expand it. There's not even a mention of the missile program that Iran has. Regarding the Strait of Hormuz, Iran is being very rigid. And last but not least, Israel is not even a signatory to this deal, which is one of the most important warring party. So I feel that, if this deal doesn't go through, in that case, Iran will be left with a much more hardened regime. Israel will face, I would say, a very intensified existential threat from a much more hardened Islamist regime in Iran. Americans will face a major dent in their credibility and also their diplomatic standing and heft in the Middle Eastern region. And America's Arab allies will be compelled to explore other options, which include ramping up military ties with the US and compelling the US to become much more active in that region, or exploring alternate ways, either through China or through Pakistan, to find some kind of a modus vivendi with Iran. So that's a stage in which we are going through right now, and definitely things seem to be in flux. So nothing can be said in a very concrete manner, but that's all I wanted to convey to you. That firstly, the deal is more like an abject surrender to Iran's whims and fancies, and secondly, it looks very fragile and weak. So its future trajectory is going to be very uncertain and unpredictable. Thank you.